Welcome, everybody, to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm today's host, Garrett McCaffrey, joined by the newly named head coach of the University of South Carolina, Jeff Poppell, who joins us now from Columbia. Coach, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Garrett. I appreciate you having me today.
What was the biggest draw making the jump from what was a good stint at University of Florida, really helping that women's program kind of turn around and with some success in the last couple of years? What made this opportunity at the University of South Carolina the right one for you?
I think there were a lot of different factors that played into it. I'll be honest. I've had a number of individuals in the swimming community, friends of mine, or even people that aren't just obviously acquaintances, that they keep asking the question, why? Why leave Florida, for the University of South Carolina? And I know on the surface, sometimes it may not look like it makes a whole lot of sense, just given where we were, obviously, at Florida at the time. And as you mentioned, the last 3 years, especially, we've been able to kind of take some steps as a program, both within the conference as well as nationally. But there are a few different things that kind of check the boxes as it related to the opportunity here at South Carolina. Opportunity to coach men and women in the SEC, which I had not had the opportunity to do as a head coach. Obviously had the opportunity as an assistant my first 2 years at Florida when we were a combined program under Greg Troy's leadership. And I enjoyed it a great deal. I mean, other than my stint at the University of Arkansas, which is also just coaching women, I'd always coached both genders, so the opportunity existed here at South Carolina to be able to do that, as well as stay in the Southeastern Conference, which to me, I swam at the University of Georgia collegiately. Obviously, I had coached at Arkansas and Florida. So the SEC is just a conference I love very much, and the ability to stay in it, which was something that was attractive. The other thing was that if you look back to kind of where, after I left Bowles, I was there for about 13 years. And when I left in 2006, any opportunities I've had since then have all been situations that involved either building or rebuilding type programs. And it's just, I get people that say, why would you take a step backward to go to South Carolina? I've never looked at coaching that way. I've just never have. I know there's a lot of people out there that are just extremely career driven. And it's not to say that I'm not, but that's not why I coach. I coach because I want to make an impact. I want to make an impact and a difference, both individually with the athletes I coach, as well as the institutions and the programs that I'm working with. So this was an opportunity to come in a situation at South Carolina and help them, and help the athletes within the program go to places that they want to go. And, that was attractive to me, to be able to make a difference and to make an impact. And at Florida, I love Florida. Florida's a heck of a school, heck of a program. And the hardest part about leaving Florida was actually, leaving the team and the athletes that I coach. In my 28 years of coaching, it was the best team dynamic and the best team culture that I've ever been associated with. And that's what made it so hard, to leave. But at the same time, the one thing I realized that no matter how long I stayed at the University of Florida, anything I accomplished at the University of Florida has already been done there before. Whether it was Greg Troy, Randy Reese, a number of successful programs that have gone through that institution. I started thinking about what if at University of South Carolina, and it was an opportunity potentially to do things that hadn't been done. And so it's been great. From the time that I was named the new head coach here, the welcoming that I've received, not just from the current team, but even more so the alumni. It has been extremely gratifying, overwhelming. I've had Zoom calls with an alumni group already. It feels like I get, emails or messages every other day, even on Facebook, from former swimmers and divers at the University of South Carolina. And if anything, that's just reinforced that the decision I made is, there's no regrets. The decision I made, I'm really, really happy about, and I'm really excited about.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, it is the top of the coaching game. When you talk about collegiate coaching is just a women's team, and now collegiate coaching as a combined program. But the further up that ladder you get, the rumor is, I'm way down here on the ladder still, so I don't know. This is just what I hear from up there, is that you do a little bit less coaching of athletes and a little bit more managing of coaches. Is that
Right.
something that you feel like is a strength? Is that something that you are trying to do more of, or how does that play into this new role for you, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, most of my background, 28 years, 18 of it was coaching club. I mean, it was. I mean, 13 at Bowles, and then I was, what was it? I guess it was 5 at Gulliver. So yeah, so just under 18 years, and it's one of those where I love working with groups, but I also love working with individuals, and I don't know, I don't. People have asked me, well, how are you going to structure your model at South Carolina, as it relates to a staff and even my role as a head coach. And there's some different models out there. There's a couple programs that I know, even within our conference, that within their combined model, they have maybe 2 coaches that lean to the women, 2 coaches that lead to men, and then they have 1 coach that might be the recruiting coordinator that assists both genders on deck. That's one model, combined model that's out there. There's another model that's a little bit more traditional, probably similar to what I experienced as a swimmer at Georgia. Jack being the head coach, kind of coached hands-on the main group, the middle distance group, and then you had the distance coach and the sprint coach and 2 assistants that helped. And then I've seen one. I mean, I don't know firsthand because I kind of watched from afar, but I had heard like even David Marsh at Auburn back in the day was kind of that manager behind the scenes, of maybe assistants that each had their own group. And it allowed him to kind of be in touch with the entire team and with the athletes from every group, because he was kind of that overseer manager. So there's different models out there, but I love coaching, and I love being hands-on on deck. So I don't really see myself as that manager, or organizer behind the scenes. I obviously definitely want to be hands-on with the athletes that I have an opportunity to work with. And I love development. I mean, that's my background, coming from Bowles and coming from club coaching. So, I think I would miss coaching in way too much, if I kind of operate a little bit more as an organizer or manager instead. I just don't think that would be as enjoyable for me.
Looking forward to the SEC competition, and the goal is to kind of step up that rung, one by one in the SEC. What is the focus right now that you see that could lead to the biggest improvement? What is the thing that you feel like you can bring immediately that might have the biggest impact?
Well, it's a good question. I've always felt like when you're talking about climbing, as a collegiate program, you can't lose sight of the development piece of your current team. So what I have control over right now are the athletes that I currently are working with in the team to try to get them to another level. Okay. But then the second piece is recruiting. Okay. So unfortunately, at least in a position right now to where we do have scholarship funds available for 2021 still for this coming fall. So, albeit that all the seniors pretty much that are coming up to 2021 have already signed on, with national letters of intent or scholarships. But the transfer portal, has kind of become a new tool now, for us college coaches around the country. So, I'm going to spend quite a bit of time probably in there over the coming months, trying to find individuals that could potentially be a great fit here for South Carolina and where we're trying to go and the culture we're trying to develop. And then internationally as well, is to continue to try to find recruits. I mean, recruiting is the key and the lifeline to any college sport. It's not just swimming and diving. So, I'm going to put a lot of effort into that over the coming months. And I enjoy recruiting. I mean, for me, it's fun. I know a lot of coaches, friends of mine that don't like that aspect of collegiate coaching, but for me, it's something I've always enjoyed. So I'm going to be pretty aggressive with that over the coming months. And, since we do have scholarship funds available to be able to add additional bodies to our team and additional team members, I'm going to do my best to try to improve our team over the next few months in that way.
I got to ask the question, and it's SwimSwam's fault that this information is out there as easily as it is. But your contract was published in an article that received a lot of attention. And as a coach, again, seeing from down here lower on the ladder how it looks from up there, I mean, it's it's inspirational, just so you know, in our industry to see somebody making really good money like that.
Thank you.
But I guess in your athletic department, it doesn't necessarily stack up quite with some of the other coaches and things. So I know that this is an awkward topic to begin with, but I guess that is the question. How does it feel to have that kind of information, out there right now?
Probably better that you're asking me that question than my wife.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
He was the first one to tell me there was an article out there about it. I had no idea. But no, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I think depending on the institutions, I mean, a lot of that information is public. I mean, I remember even at Florida, there was an article in the local newspaper down there. I think my first year as head coach for the women's program, where all the salaries and including kind of bonus structures and so forth of every coach in the University of Florida athletic department was out there, for people to see. So this isn't the first time, that's kind of happened, at least for me personally. But it's okay. I mean, like I said, I think, in my years of coaching and definitely coaching collegiately, I mean, I think across the board, the coaching contracts have become a little bit more lucrative, than maybe they were 5 years, 10 years ago. And I think that's great for our profession, and for our coaches. At the same time, I was really fortunate. I mean, with that contract that you saw, and more so the incentives and the bonus structure that they put in place. I mean, it was awesome. It was fantastic. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that wasn't also a factor that played into me accepting the job, because it was very realistic, because we've got a lot of work to do here. It's not going to be an overnight fix by any means, to climb. But if you look at the bonus structure that they put in place, I mean, it was very realistic as it relates to rewarding even just incremental gains in these next few years. It's not something like, it's going to take 5 years, 10 years down the road before you can even earn a bonus. I mean, they made some very realistic benchmarks right off the bat. So that was very much appreciated by me. And at the same time, if that can help other coaches, around the country when they talk contracts, with their athletic administrators or maybe they're becoming a head coach for the first time and they don't really know what questions to ask when it comes to negotiating a contract. If it can help them, wonderful. I'm from that perspective, I'm all about, helping others out there and helping people in our profession if it does that.
Last question, and I'll kind of leave it to this. What do you hope in 4 to 5 years is the factor that leads to South Carolina's success? What will separate South Carolina in your vision here at the front of what, hopefully is going to be a great stretch for you in Columbia? What's the vision that you have? What's going to be the factor that separates?
Well, the factor that's going to separate South Carolina from maybe the South Carolina that we've experienced in recent years, just based off of what I'm hearing from the administration here at South Carolina, is there's going to be a big focus on the team culture. I think that's one of the things that made both our programs at Florida, both the men and the women, so successful over the most recent years. Is our team culture is really strong. When you talk about team culture, you're talking about attitudes, behaviors, and going about things in the right way. And it's just going to be, I feel like the success and the results come from doing those types of things. So that's going to be an emphasis just internally. I think when you start looking at South Carolina taking steps within the conference and nationally, and what's going to be the separator in that standpoint. I think a lot of it comes back to, part of it's, I dealt with this at Florida, my first year of coaching the women. I think a lot of it is instilling a belief and confidence with the athletes that we have here that they can compete, with best teams in our conference. They haven't done that in recent years, but I think there's different types of steps that we want to take to building that confidence. Some of that comes from what you do in training, in preparation, but some of that also comes from what you do in competition as well. So that's going to be a big focus. And then I've always felt like competition makes your team stronger. So we want to, I think, build an environment here. And a lot of that will stem from recruiting, where we have competitions through the various events and the strokes and the specialties, where everybody within our team dynamic can get better. At Florida, the last 3 years, if we're looking at the conference conference meet, for example. All 3 years at Florida, as the head coach, we had every athlete that we took to the conference meet score a point, all 3 years. Last year, I think there were a few more teams. I think my very first year and maybe the second year, I think the Florida women's program was the only program, male or female, at SECs where every athlete scored that we took to the meet. Like I said, there were more teams than that this past year. I know that, but that was something that we took a lot of pride in. And at the same time, I think that's what attributed us being able to climb the ranks of the SEC ladder. So we want to do the same thing here at South Carolina. I mean, the focus in our program isn't just going to be on the top 5 athletes. It's going to be everybody that's on our roster. And the more athletes within our roster that we can get to those levels where they're competing with the very best, then I think it puts us in a dynamic where our program as a whole can start climbing, faster and hopefully to a higher level. But that's again, I think it comes back to my club background and a club dynamic. I mean, you're working with all kinds of different skill sets and ability levels and backgrounds. And it's real similar, I think, to what I find here at South Carolina and what some college coaches will find in their team dynamic. So if you're still taking that same type of club approach where you're trying to develop your full team, not just maybe the best ones, I think that will help your team as a whole, rise a little bit faster, than maybe some other teams that you compete against.
Good stuff, Coach. Sounds awesome. I really appreciate and look forward to seeing some of this kind of play out, and best of luck to you in the new role and in the coming summer of Olympics, and then going into your first season at the helm. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Garrett. I appreciate you having me as always.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.